Hey everybody, Jay Super Awesome here. I'd like to welcome you all back to my channel, and I would like to welcome you all back to my 31 Days of Horror in October Halloween celebration. This is going to be episode number 5. Happy Halloween, everybody. In this video, I will be showing you everything I watched from October 25th through October 31st. Let's have a look. October 25th, 2020, I watched the Children of the Corn remake. And this is another one that's notoriously hated by horror fans, and I can understand why people dislike this one. The story is pretty much the same as the original movie with a few changes towards the end. We have Bert and Vicky, and these characters have been set up a lot differently in this movie. In the original movie, they were really likable characters. In this movie, they are constantly fighting, and it's just a lot to listen to, it's a lot to take in, and it's asking a lot of the viewer. Anyway, they are traveling together. They end up in Gatlin, Nebraska. They are referred to as the Outlanders, and the children have murdered all the adults. With these characters being so different than the original, it changes the entire outcome of the movie, and I have to say that I really like that. According to the director discussing the movie in the special features, he wanted to remake Children of the Corn so it would be more like the book. Now, I haven't read the book, so I can't really make any comparisons myself. But I will say changing the characters to people who can't get along changes the movie up and changes the outcome. I like the way the movie ended this time around, but it was a struggle with these characters just to get there. As far as the evil religious kids go, I thought they did a pretty good job on the actor they cast for Malachi. I don't think they could have gotten anybody better to play that part. And well, with Isaac's character, not so much. I have always been a big fan of this storyline, and it was really cool to see it play out in a different way. I'm also a pretty big fan of this franchise. Some of the sequels are pretty far out there, but I have always been interested in seeing where each story would take us. In this movie, we have a scene that takes place in a church with the kids. Isaac is preaching a sermon, something about planting seeds. I don't recall exactly what he was saying because what happened next was absolutely jaw-dropping. We have two of the oldest kids. They begin to have sex in the church right in front of the other kids. It does show quite a bit. The way it was shot and filmed, you could tell the kids were not actually there in the same scene because it would cut away just showing them watching, and then it would cut back to the other two getting it on. But still, what the scene implies, which is young kids watching older kids having sex in a church, is just jaw-dropping for me to think about. Director Donald P. Bochers really had a lot of guts to put a scene like that in his film. Overall, I have some mixed feelings about this Children of the Corn remake. The main characters of Bert and Vicky were highly annoying, but I still did like the overall storyline. October 26, 2020, I watched Halloween Resurrection, and this is another one that is notoriously hated, but myself personally, I liked it better than the previous film in the franchise, which was Halloween H2O, for a few different reasons. First off, two of the most important parts of a slasher movie for me are the killer and the kills, and these are two things that were greatly improved over Halloween H2O. That movie had a lot of off-screen kills, and I'm just not a big fan of that. Halloween Resurrection has some pretty brutal kills, and we actually get to see a lot more of them this time around. Of course, it does have some off-screen kills as well, but we do get to see some pretty brutal kills. I really like the look of Michael Myers in this movie. I thought his mask was pretty cool looking. I hated how Michael looked in H2O. He looked really scrawny, and the mask was terrible. Now, to give H2O some credit, the storyline was way better, and so were the characters. So, for me, it's kind of like you have to pick your poison. Do you want a slasher movie with better characters and better story? Or do you want a slasher movie with a better killer that delivers some fun kills? The storyline for this one picks up where H2O left off. We get a lame backstory on how Michael survived the last movie. Laurie Strode is in a mental hospital waiting on Michael to return, just like she always does. I absolutely love the opening of this movie, and just a warning, if you haven't seen this movie, spoilers are coming. I love this opening because after all this time, Michael finally kills Laurie Strode. I was so happy for him. After all these movies, he was finally able to get the job done. And wouldn't you know it, they found another way to bring her ass back. Ugh. So after Lori's death, Michael goes back home to the Myers house where it has been set up for a reality TV show called Dangertainment. The house has been set up with props for a more dramatic effect. Each contestant is wearing a camera so the online audience can follow what's going on. The contestants are locked in the Myers house and start getting killed off one by one. I have never been a huge fan of this reality TV storyline. I guess because I was never a big fan of reality TV in the first place. But during this time this movie was made, it was a popular thing, so I can see why they went with this storyline. In my opinion, the thing that hurts this movie the most is Busta Rhymes' character. Trying to do Kung Fu on Michael Myers, that was so terrible. Overall, I think most of you already know what this movie is and you already have your own opinion about it, I'm sure. Hopefully you guys don't beat me up too bad over my opinion. I do like it a little better than H2O, but just in terms of how Michael looks, and I thought the kills were way better. But I don't think either one of them are anything all that special, if that helps any. October 27, 2020, I watched Cynthia, and I thought this movie was an absolute blast. It's an extremely fun and entertaining creature feature. In this movie, we have Robin and Michael who are desperately trying to have a baby. And I got the vibe right away that Robin was really the one that was pushing to have the baby. Robin is played by Scout Taylor Compton, and I thought she did an amazing job in this movie. Her character goes through a lot of different changes, and I thought she was great in this movie. Anyway, they have been using an experimental drug to increase their chances of getting pregnant. After a long, desperate wait, it finally happens for them. One of their doctor visits reveals that they are actually having twins, but after looking at it closely, the doctor writes the second baby off as being a tumor instead. But on the day of delivery, the couple witnessed the birth of their beautiful baby girl Samantha, and the tumor is removed and discarded, but refuses to be forgotten. Bloody carnage ensues. When the happy family return home, they are not alone. The discarded tumor thing that we will come to know and love as Cynthia stalks the house's ventilation tunnels and has become very close with its sister and wants to be a part of the family. And anyone who gets in the way becomes the sweet and innocent Cynthia's next victim. This movie was a blast. It was so cool to see several different horror movie legends make cameo appearances. Sid Haig is in this movie and has a pretty big role. He plays as the detective that's trying to figure out what's going on. We have one of the most horrifying cameos by Bill Moseley that I believe that I have ever seen. Truly nightmare fuel. We also see James Karen for a brief moment, who I absolutely loved in Return of the Living Dead 1 and 2. I recommend Cynthia if you enjoy movies like It's Alive but with humor. If you like little creatures that mutilate people, then you are sure to enjoy Cynthia. She's so adorable. Wednesday, October 28, 2020, Wild Eye Wednesday, I watched The House on Cuckoo Lane. Some believe it's a genuine snuff film. Some believe its existence is purely rumor. This is the video nasty every horror collector wants. But you don't find this movie finds you. Follow the tragic journey of one movie fanatic as he spirals into a nightmare of obsession over the film, opening up a disturbing world of secret pain and suffering, both on screen and off. Even though I have heard good things about this movie, I was actually a little surprised with how much I actually enjoyed it. But considering this movie is about a horror movie collector who tirelessly searches for that must-have movie, it was a storyline I could totally relate to. I know what it's like to pursue a movie that you have a very slim chance of finding, and when you do find it, if you actually do find it, it's usually crazy expensive. But this movie pushes that idea to the extreme, and finding this tape and watching it might very well cost you the ultimate price, your life. So if you think about it in that regard, it kind of does have a Ring vibe to it, and it actually does mention that on the back of the DVD. Sean is the main character to this movie's storyline, and interestingly enough, Sean is played by the movie's director, David Hines. Sean has a very impressive horror movie collection and collects all forms of physical media, but the one object of his desire, the one film he is obsessed with, is The House on Cuckoo Lane. It's that rare oddity that he must have for his collection, the rarest of the rare, the tape nobody else has. His obsessions begin to cause him to have bad dreams that actually foreshadows things to come. I really enjoyed this movie. It is low budget, but I love the way the movie was shot and filmed. It has a gritty look to it that really sets the mood for the movie, along with its fantastic score. We also have some really good set locations within this movie. We have Sean's house, and we get a pretty decent look at his collection, so that was really cool. We travel down some long, dark, winding roads with Sean in his travels and searching for this mysterious tape. Then ultimately we have the abandoned house on Cuckoo Lane that is nothing short of creepy. Overall, I highly recommend The House on Cuckoo Lane. October 29th, 2020, I watched Tremors, Shrieker Island. When a group of wealthy trophy hunters genetically modify graboid eggs to create the ultimate hunting experience, it isn't long before their prey escapes the confines of their small island and begins terrorizing the inhabitants of a nearby island research facility. The head of the research facility and her second-in-command, Jimmy, locate the one man who is an expert in killing graboids, the one, the only, and now reluctant, Burt Gummer, of course played by Michael Gross. Once on board, Burt leads the group in an all-out war against the larger, faster, and terrifyingly intelligent graboids, and the swiftly multiplying Shriekers. So getting into my thoughts for this one, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm a big fan of the overall franchise. I think these movies are a lot of fun. This movie continues the trend of the more recent Tremor movies, and that's basically putting Burt into new settings to fight the graboids in some various different phases of their life cycle. In this one, we mostly have Shriekers, and they hunt in packs a lot like velociraptors. But we also have a giant mutated graboid, and someone in the movie actually mentions that it's the size of Godzilla, but that's definitely over-exaggerated. It's probably the biggest graboid of the franchise, but the unfortunate thing is we don't really see it all that much in this movie. They do use a lot of CGI in this movie, but I didn't think it looked all that bad. And I feel like at this point, if you're a Tremors fan, then most likely you're a Tremors fan for life, and the CGI is something that you can easily overlook. For me, the star of the show is and always will be Burt Gummer, of course played by Michael Gross. At least from the second movie on. I mean, the first movie was loaded with great characters, but Michael Gross's character is the only example I can think of where an actor has played in each and every movie in the entire franchise. I could be wrong with that, but I don't think that's ever happened before. And I think that Burt Gummer's character is great. But in this movie, we do have another great standout character named Bill, played by Richard Brake, who was in Rob Zombie's 31 and 3 from Hell, and a lot of other movies. In fact, everything that I have ever seen him in, he has been a standout. And in this movie, he is the perfect villain character to oppose Burt. He plays a hunter who will stop at nothing to kill the giant genetically mutated graboid. And of course, everything that happened in this movie was his fault. Overall, I really enjoyed Tremors, Shrieker Island, and I was completely shocked by the ending. In fact, I still need to pick my jaw up from the shock of the ending. October 30th, 2020, I watched Friday the 13th. This movie, as is the franchise, is near and dear to my heart. The first film isn't necessarily my favorite by any means. That honor goes to part 2, but I still love this movie, and it sets up the second film perfectly. And I do think that the campground setting from the first film was one of the best in the entire franchise. So the movie has a really good setting, a really good score, great characters, who are likable and that you really care about. And who could ever forget Crazy Ralph and his famous line, "You're all doomed." I really love the 1958 opening of this film. A group of counselors are gathered around a warm fire to sing songs, and at the conclusion of Hallelujah, two of the counselors leave the group to go have sex. But before they can really even get going, the act comes to a bloody end. We do later learn that 1 year prior to this attack, that a young boy drowned in the lake while two counselors were making love and not paying attention. This is the setup to the legend of Camp Crystal Lake. And when a new owner tries to reopen the campgrounds, the counselors begin to be killed off one by one in the most gruesome ways possible. And that becomes one of the greatest things about this franchise. You know, each movie is going to deliver some good kills. The fun part is waiting and watching to see who and how, with each kill becoming more creative. And it was all perfectly set up with this first movie. This movie does have a few off-screen kills, but at least this movie uses one of the off-screen kills to set up a later kill. We have a character named Ned who goes missing. We don't know what happened to him, but later when Jack and Marcy, Jack played by Kevin Bacon, when Jack and Marcy are having sex, we see Ned's dead body on the top bunk with his throat cut. So even though this movie does have a few off-screen kills, there's still enough creativity for this to be a highly enjoyable slasher. My favorite kill in this movie is Marcy's death in the bathroom. It's so brutal. And the ending to this movie, the twist ending, is absolutely fantastic. And I also need to mention the score by Harry Manfredini. It was amazing with what he was able to do for this movie, and it's a perfect example why music is so important in film, especially slasher movies. Anyway, I love this movie, I love this franchise, and it never gets old for me. October 31st, 2020, Halloween, I watched VHS. In VHS, a group of misfits are hired by an unknown third party to burglarize a desolate house in the countryside and acquire a rare tape. Upon searching the house, the guys are confronted with a dead body, a hub of old televisions, and an endless supply of cryptid footage. Each video stranger and more explicitly terrifying than the last. Okay, so getting into my thoughts for this one, the interesting thing about this one is that it's a found footage anthology movie, and I'm not a big fan of found footage, but I really did enjoy this movie. I was actually trying to fit this one into my 31 Days of Horror last year, but it got pushed out. I thought it would be neat to do on Halloween because it has a lot of different stories. I'm not going to go into a lot of details about each one, but I will give a brief description. And hopefully I get all of them matched up right with the titles. But the wraparound is Tape 56, and we have a group of lowlifes who vandalize and assault women by exposing them while filming them, and then they sell it. They have been hired by a unanimous person, so that's the wraparound. Next we have Amateur Night, and in this one we have three friends who are going from club to club, drinking and partying, looking for girls to bring back to their hotel room. This segment actually spawned a full-length feature film called Siren that I really enjoyed. Moving on, the next segment is called Second Honeymoon. This is a pretty short segment, so I can't really say much about it. A couple are in a hotel room, and a strange girl knocks on the door asking for a ride the next day. The ending of this segment is absolutely brutal. Next, we have Tuesday the 17th. I really like the setup for this one. It's a slasher in the woods type deal. I just don't like the idea that you can't see the supernatural killer because the images on the camera are always distorted. Then we have The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger. This one was really interesting. We have a couple that communicate through FaceTime or something like that. She believes her apartment is haunted, but something much more sinister is happening. And finally, we have 10/31/98. And this was another great segment. We have a group of friends who are dressed up going to a costume party on Halloween night and pick the wrong house. And I will just say that there are some demonic or supernatural forces at work here, and the house is pretty creepy itself. And then we are back to the wraparound. In fact, we go back to the wraparound between each segment. Overall, I really enjoyed VHS. I thought it was a fun and entertaining anthology of found footage style shorts. Okay, so there you have it. This has been episode number 5 of my 31 Days of Horror in October. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you think about the video. Be sure to hit the notification bell for future J Super Awesome videos. I would like to wish you all a happy Halloween. And as always, I would like to thank you all for watching.